In this video, we're going to look at some quick worked examples of rounding numbers to 1 and 2 significant figures. When we read a number from left to right, the first significant figure is the first non-zero value. So if we look at 743, the first significant figure is the 7, and that's in the hundreds column. 345.7, it would be the 3, and again, that's in the hundreds column. 11.39, it would be the first 1, and that's in the tens column. If we now go ahead and look at 0.241, 0 is not significant. So the first significant figure is the 2, and that is in the tens column. We got 5.07, 5 is the first significant figure. If we have a 0 after the first significant figure, this becomes the second significant figure. So let's go ahead now and look at rounding 743 to one significant figure. So we're going to write this down. Now the first significant figure is the hundreds column. So essentially if we round into 1 SF, we're interested in rounding this to the nearest 100. I look at the number next to it, I can see that this is going to be less than 5. So as we've rounded to decimal places, we simply round down. So to one significant figure, our choices are 700 or 800. We round down to 700 as 40 is going to be less than 50. If we look now at rounding this number to one significant figure, again, we're rounding to the nearest 100. So our choices are 300 or 400. It's going to be 300 as we've got now a 4 after the first significant figure. So it's going to be now 300. If we look now at the next one, the first significant figure is in the tens column. So we're rounding to the nearest 10. It can either be 10 or 20. It's going to be 10 as we've got 1 after the significant figure. So to the nearest to the nearest 10, one significant figure, it's going to be 10. Our choices were 10 and 20, not 10 and 11. This one here, we got 0.241. So with this one, our first significant figure is the 2. So we can either round this to 0.2 or 0.3. Again, we would round down, and this is going to be 0.2. That's to one significant figure. This one here, we've got now 5.07. So we're interested in rounding this to the nearest unit. The first significant figure is 5. That's in the units column. So our choices are 5 or 6. Because we have a 0, we're going to have 5. So that's rounding to one significant figure. If we have, for example, here 768, and we wanted to round this to one significant figure, we're rounding to the nearest 100. We can see that 6 is going to be 5 or more. Therefore, to one significant figure, 1 SF, we're going to have 800. We would round up. If we had on this one, for example, 372.1, to one significant figure, we're rounding to the nearest 100. So this would round up as we've got the 7 next to the significant figure, and it would be 400. Okay, let's now look at rounding to two significant figures. So the second significant figure here is now the 4. This is in the tens column. Our choices now are 740 or 750. We can see that this is going to round down because we have a 3. So to two significant figures, we have 740. The number that was going to possibly change is the 4, and that is in the tens column. So essentially here, we're rounding to the nearest 10. Second significant figure is the 4, so again, we're rounding to the nearest 10. Our choices are 340 or 350. Because we have a 5 after the 4, we round up, and this will be 350 to two significant figures. Here, our second significant figure is in the units column. So we're going to round to the nearest unit. This can either be 11 or it could be 12. As we've got now the 3 after the 1, this is going to round down, and to two significant figures, we're going to end up now with 11. This one right here, we're going to round to two significant figures. The second significant figure now is the 4, and that's in the hundreds column. So we can either have 0.24 or 0.25. This is going to round to 0.24 as the 1 is less than 5. So 0.24, and that is correct to 2 significant figures. The second significant figure in this one is the 0. So before this wasn't significant, but as soon as it follows a non-zero value, it becomes significant. So we can have 5.0 or 5.1. The 7 is greater than 5, so to 2 significant figures, it's going to be 5.1. Essentially what you're doing here is rounding to the nearest tenth or 1 decimal place. So let's look at some other examples. Let's say we've got 67.249. If we wanted to round this to 1 significant figure, our choices now are going to be 60 or 70. We can see now that the value after the 6 is going to be greater than 5, or 5 or more, so to 1 significant figure it would be 70. If we look at 2 significant figures, we're rounding here now to the nearest integer or the nearest unit. So our choices are going to be 67 or 68. So to 2 significant figures, we're going to choose 67 as the value after the 7 is lower than 5. So to 2 significant figures, it's 67. If we wanted to go to 3 significant figures, it's this value here that might change. So to 3 significant figures, we could have 67.2 or we could have 67.3. We can see that the 4 after the 2 is going to be less than 5, so to 3 significant figures it's 67.2. If we went to 4 significant figures, it's now the 100s that are going to be changing. So if we consider this now, our choices are going to be as follows. We can have now 67.24 or we can have 67.25. So all we're doing now is increasing the level of accuracy. We can see that 9 is going to be greater than 5, so to 4 significant figures this is going to be 67.25. So there are some quick worked examples of rounding numbers to 1 and 2 significant figures, and then we've looked at going to 4.